Hey, hi, welcome back. So from this video, we are going to start with schematic editor. And as this schematic editor part is actually little lengthy, so I have divided it in 6 different parts. Okay. And in this video, we are going to start with the first part. Alright. So let's start with this video now. Introduction to schematic editor part 1. Now let me tell you what you are going to learn in this first part. There are multiple things that we are going to discuss in different parts of schematic editor videos. But in this part, we are mainly going to focus on following points. So the first point is what are sheets in schematic editor. So I will explain you the purpose of sheets and why we need it while creating schematic. Okay. After that, the second point is what is grid in schematic editor. So here, I will explain you the purpose of grid and how grid helps us while creating the schematic. Okay. After that, the next point is what is reference mark in schematic editor. So again, I will discuss this point and we will see how it helps us while creating the schematic. Okay. So these are the learning objectives of this video. Now let's start with this video. So you already know this is how basically the schematic editor look like. Okay. So I'm going to start from this point, which is about sheet. So you can see this is actually called as sheet. Okay. And if I right click on this one and if I click on new, then you can see right now there are actually 2 sheets. Now, if I again right click on this, then you can see this particular option is now disabled. The reason is we are actually using the free version of Eagle software. And in free version of the Eagle software, only 2 sheets are available. Okay. And if you go for a standard version, which is actually the paid version, then in that version, you will actually get around 99 sheets or somewhere around that. But from our hardware design point of view or from our application point of view, these 2 sheets are actually enough. Okay. And even out of these 2 sheets, we are just going to use only one sheet to create the schematic. So at this moment, I will actually remove this sheet and after that I will click on yes. So we just have one sheet now and we are just going to use this sheet to create the schematic. Okay. So we are done with the sheet now. After that, the most important thing when you create the schematic is grid. And at this moment, if you see in the schematic editor, grid is actually disabled. And you have to enable the grid from this option. So you can see here in display, under display, on is actually this particular option is not selected. Okay. Off is selected. That's why the grid is not visible at this moment. So if I click on and if I click on OK, then you can see right now the grid is available. Okay. Now what's the purpose of grid? You know, when you create the schematic, grid is actually going to help you to place the component on the grid. Okay. So once you have your component on the grid, then it becomes a lot easy to connect different components with that particular component. For example, here one component is placed and here another component is placed. And if you want to connect the pins of these 2 components, then with the help of grid, it's going to be a lot easy for you. So grid actually helps you to visualize the connections between 2 different pins of 2 different components. So you don't need to bother about this point. It will automatically get cleared. Okay. So this is how basically the grid look like. And this type of grid is actually called as line grid. So I will just go to this option once again and you can see there are actually 2 types of grid. The first one is lines grid and the second one is dots grid. Okay. So I will select this option and I will show you how exactly dots grid look like. So I will select this one and after that I will click on OK. So you can see this is how basically the dot grid look like. But generally I don't use dot grid. I'm actually not habitual to dot grid. That's the reason I'm just going to select this option, lines grid option, or style it's going to be lines. And after that straight away I'm going to select on OK. Now there is actually one more option here, which is size. So this size is actually given in inches and I will recommend you to use the default grid option. Okay. At this moment when you are getting started. In future, when you are much more comfortable with the grid, then Maybe with your experience you can change this value, but generally I also keep this default value while creating the schematic in the schematic editor. I didn't find any need to change this size value. Okay, so this is basically the size of grid. So I will just show you what exactly this is. So you can see here, this is first point and this is the second point. So the distance between these 2 points, it's actually 0.1 inches. So if I change this, let's say if I write 0.2 here, then you can see the size of grid is now changed. So this is how you can actually change the size of grid. But as I told you, I'm just going to keep the default option. And let's say in case if you forget what was the default value here, so straight away you can select this option, which is default, and automatically the default grid will be selected. Sorry, I think here display option is off is actually by default. So we need to select on, and after that we need to click on OK. Alright, so that was all about the grid option. Actually, I forgot to tell you one more option here. So this is the first option, first grid, which is at a distance of 0.1, and this is alternate grid. Okay, and if you see here, the distance between the 2 points is 0.01. Okay, now I will explain you how exactly this alternate grid look like. So for that, first of all, I will click on OK. Now, in order to explain that, I am going to use this option, which is nets. Now, what exactly net is, I will explain that later. First of all, let's stick to the point and let me explain what is alternate grid. So if I right click on this option, and after that you can see from this point I can only connect, or I can move towards this point only. I can't move between these 2 points. The reason is this is actually the primary grid. Now if I click on alternate button, okay, on keyboard, then I can snap between 2 different points. Okay, so this is so let me just zoom in. So this is 0.01 inches, then again 0.01 inches. So if I press the alter button on the keyboard, then I can actually snap between the alternate grid. Okay, so right now the alternate grid is enabled because I have pressed the alter button. And if I deselect the alternate button, or if I depress the alternate button, then I'm going to move straight away from this point directly to this point, and I can't move between these 2 points. Okay, alright, so I hope now the grid option is absolutely clear to you. And if you have any kind of doubt in this option, then definitely you can ask me regarding it. Okay, so we are done with the grid option now. After that, yeah, this is basically the marker. Okay, or it is also called as, you can see here, it's called as mark. So whatever schematic you create in the schematic editor, all that schematic is actually going to be with respect to this point. Okay, you can see here, you can call it as a coordinate. So right now it's -1 and 3.6. However, if I hover on this particular point, so you can see the coordinate is 0, 0,0. Okay, so which represents that this is basically the reference point, and all the schematic that we are going to create, it's going to be with respect to this point. So for example, let's say that you created a schematic and now you want to take a printout. So that printout is going to be with respect to this point. Okay, so generally we create the schematic in the schematic editor with respect to this point. So we are done with the grid, then we are done with the sheets, and then we are done with this mark reference point. Okay, alright, so I hope that everything that we discussed is clear to you. Now in next video, we will start with the different options which are available in this toolbar. Okay, and I will explain you all these options step by step. Alright, so that's what I wanted to discuss in this video. Now I will see you in next video.